Welcome to today's episode of Beyond the Reformer. And today, you've just got me. I have been asked so many times, would I do some solo episodes? And I've just sat procrastinating about, well, what would I do it on? What would be my topic? Would I talk about this? Would I talk about that? Would I talk about anything else? And today I thought that I would give you my diary as a Pilates studio owner, not in any way ripping off Stephen Bartlett, who has the most wonderful podcast. But I just thought about when I was a new studio owner and a newer teacher, I really felt like a little bit on my own and a little bit like I'm just guessing at all of this. So, if I can share any of my insights from the past month or 6 weeks or so, and if that in any way helps you, then I'm happy to do it. I have just loved building this podcast. I've had this idea for such a long time. It's been lovely to bring it to fruition. There was a time where I was thinking about launching a wellness podcast, and actually it was running my own teacher training. I wrote and now run my own teacher training. And I would hear the conversations that I was having with students. And it just made me realize I love Pilates so much. It's totally changed my life. It's changed my view on life. And I can talk about it forever. So here I am, still talking about it. It's been amazing to kind of have these conversations with you. I feel like this podcast is like CPD for me. I get to learn so much from our guests. I get to have a reason to connect with people I have admired from afar for a long, long time. And I set out really to just do like one season, do it well, and I will feel like I have ticked that box. But now I feel like I've started on a road. And honestly, our stats, our numbers are incredible. Our listening is doubling each month. So thank you so much for being here. You're obviously sharing it. We are in like tens and tens of countries, hundreds of cities, far and wide. Like, so hello, I think like Dubai, the Middle East, Australia, lots of people in America, lots of people all over Europe. And it's just amazing to be having these conversations and bringing these guests to you. Do follow us on our Instagram, which is beyond_reformer_pod, Beyond Reformer Pod. I personally do respond to all the DMs. So I love hearing your thoughts and what topics are you struggling with? Are there things that you as a teacher, as a studio owner, or maybe you're an enthusiast listening to this episode? I know a lot of my friends and family started listening to support me in the beginning, but what's really interesting is they genuinely love the conversations. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? Like, I love hearing people's stories. I love hearing the reason why they got into this and how Pilates made them feel. I think for me, that's interesting for everybody, whether you're in this industry or not. But if you are working in the Pilates world, what support do you need? What kind of topics could we talk about? Maybe it's me talking or I'll get some guests on. So do let me know. And yeah, it's just wonderful to have you here. So my diary, I was thinking about this because I was thinking I could come on and I could talk about teaching, or I could talk about business, or I could talk about being a mother in business, and I could talk about all the things. So I thought I just went through my diary before I went live with this and just wrote down some kind of key things in no particular order about where I'm at, really. I have just come back from a week's holiday. It was amazing. I went away with my family. We went to Gran Canaria. I just had such a lovely time there. What I found interesting was it was about 4 days before I switched off. I was really struggling. I kept sort of being on my Instagram. I was posting reels for the podcast. I was responding to comments, and I'm enjoying that. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy it. But I was also noticing that I was getting so focused in on work that I was maybe missing some time in the mornings, especially with my kids. And even when I was sat by the pool, I was kind of just, my mind was whirring. And I think one of the topics that's come up quite a bit on the podcast has been that we might be in the wellness world. And often some of us came to this because of burnout, especially for corporate burnout. It seems to be a big reason people leave and come and do this. That was my story too. But we're not immune to getting burnt out. And that's hard, isn't it? Because we're often teaching people about balance, like Joseph Pilates was about a balance of work, life, and recreation. And I think the challenge is now we are always on, aren't we? Like we've always got our little mini computers in our phones with us. So that was definitely a challenge for me. And I came home thinking I need to be a little bit more balanced. And, I'm 4 days in and it's just as busy as it's always been. Equally, I really love running at a million miles an hour. I fit a lot of things into my day. When I manage to clear some spinning plates, I'm an absolute bugger for just adding more spinning plates in, hence the podcast. And I don't know, I think I just have to somewhat accept that, but maybe try and put some practices into my life that will maybe help me feel a little healthier. I had a bit of a health scare in the last month or so. And I remember thinking, like, what if I'd got the really bad big C news, which is what they were maybe saying that it was. And I thought I would have to really look at balancing things more. So I am making a commitment to, in fact, my friend said to me, I listened to this podcast and you talk about Pilates was the thing that you did to help calm you. How much Pilates are you doing? I was like, yeah, not actually that much. And I think that's something that is really prevalent in our world, isn't it? That we teach, but we're not doing. So that's the commitment I've made to myself. On holiday, I actually filmed 3 classes. Now, look, I know it's work, but the thing about mat classes online is that you do them. So at least it made me do it. And I thought, actually, that might be a commitment that I can make, try and find a space at home where I can just easily, it was really easy on holiday because there was this beautiful space and I brought my tripod and my mic and it didn't take long to set up and off I went. So I've made a commitment to do that. I'm also making a commitment to try and do more restorative type classes. I think sometimes as teachers, like we're good movers and we're strong and that's not really what we need. Like my studio, Soul Pilates, like the soul is all about restoring your nervous system, feeling calm, feeling balanced. Like I listened to Audrey's episode and it really resonated with me. I was listening back to it. I listen to all the episodes when they're live. I really enjoy them actually. And Audrey's, I was listening to all this stuff going, yeah, that's me again. That's me again. That's me again. Here I am. I am on the edge of burnout. So I am trying to find more time for some peace. Because there's this saying that says, if you don't have time to meditate for 30 minutes, you should meditate for an hour. And I think that's very true. So I've been doing some of Audrey's sound bath meditations. She's got Core State HQ. They are brilliant. I think the sound bath added into the meditations and the Reiki guidance that she gives, it's just like giving all the things. And the sound is meaning that I am really staying present with it. So that's great. And I'm enjoying that. And I'm also trying to just build into my own movement practice, like I said, more softness and more ease, and maybe looking to find a class that I can go to that's like somatic practices. Because I go to my studio a lot because I genuinely think we have the best teachers, the best setup. But it's hard as a studio owner to go and not be like, oh, that reformer's making a noise, or did someone not clean in here today? And that doesn't help me mentally relax in the same way as when I go to a studio and someone else holds the energy for me. So I am definitely noticing the need to remind myself frequently about balance for sure. Before I went on holiday, we had a really busy month. The month of June into July is really busy for education. June is the last month of one of our comprehensive cohorts. It's also the exam month for another cohort that went previous. And then in July, we start with another comprehensive cohort. So I chose a couple of years ago to write my own teacher training and write a comprehensive teacher training. At the time, I really needed comprehensively trained instructors. And to be honest, I do find that the comprehensively trained instructors, they do make the best instructors. They tend to have a lot more depth to their knowledge. They tend to be able to understand the difference between teaching classes and private. So the comprehensively trained instructors tend to always be busier with privates. They tend to build them up. People come back to them because I think they feel a bit more confident with more of the rehab side of things. So I decided to write a course. I am Polestar Pilates trained and I cannot recommend their training enough. And you've heard Diane on the podcast a few times from Polestar, who was my mentor alongside Liz Bussey, and they are fabulous. The challenge I had with Polestar was that you have to go to London, then you're doing a lot of your mentoring in London. And for a lot of people, it just isn't possible. And it's quite a long training. Like most people take a year and a half to 2 years, maybe sometimes even more because of the amount of hours you have to get in. And I felt like what I wanted to do was say, well, what if you wanted to have an entry level comprehensive course that gave you enough depth to start as a decent teacher, but opened you up to kind of want to know more and do more CPD and more learning? And so I created a 12-month course. So 6 months of in person trainings and then 6 months where you can fill in your logbook. And we look to support you with kind of studio hours and things like that. And, come in and do apprentice teaching and kind of come in and support us with it. So it's been absolutely brilliant to do it. And we run 2 trainings a year. So one starts in January and one starts in July. And I've had a number of people ask me, would I run a reformer course either in my studio in Bristol, or we've now had some studios reach out to me, which is great, to say, would I come and run a course at their studio, either a comprehensive course or a reformer course, and then they would support the mentoring. And we would do the training. We've got a lot of it online, a good chunk in person, which I think is very much needed, and then come and run the exams, but that they could mentor them. So that's been really exciting, actually, to start to see the education piece grow. And I think, again, lots of the conversations I've had on the podcast, so many of them have been about short teacher trainings. And I think part of the reason I did this podcast was to try and get teachers out there to maybe start to see some of these great people in our world and understand how deep this work can go, and that we should be doing training all the time. My course very much enabled that in me. But yeah, I see lots of teachers who did their comprehensive training like 10 years ago and have never gone and done like a workshop. Like when you're with post-natal Pilates, to keep your qualification, you need to do, I think it's 16 hours every 2 years, which I just lap up. I easily do the hours because I want to keep learning. And so I hope through some of these conversations, some of you are like, oh, I didn't know I could specialize in that. I didn't know there was a course on this. I didn't know that I could do this. Because I think it's really important that we as teachers really understand that this is such a amazing profession to be part of. And people are coming to us to really help them and to guide them, especially in privates. A lot of people have got themselves into a real pickle in their bodies. Their body feels like it's failed them. And it's important that we have the knowledge that we can support them. And really, we get that through training courses, but also learning with our clients and having a mentor. So I have mentors where when I first started teaching in the first few years, I'd be like, oh my God, I've got this client. I have no idea. Like, what do I do with a person like this? And it's nice to have someone that you can bounce ideas off who's maybe got some more experience around that. But yeah, I love the education. It has been such a privilege actually to start, for me, to challenge myself with thinking about this work in a deeper way. And Diane was actually a big support of mentoring me with this, because she said, when you start to want to teach other people this work, you start looking at it in a much deeper way yourself. And that has definitely been true. And also I've noticed that as I went through and started putting the materials together, there were exercises I'd kind of forgotten about, or I certainly never brought into my classes because they were often the ones that my body didn't really like. And I've come back to them and it's been great, and going like, okay, let's think about teaching this. And actually it's allowed me to refresh my classes again and think about how can I, in a one-to-one, we often do go slower when we go deeper. And if we went that slow and that depth in a class, like we would lose people. They would get bored. I accept that. But I think it's important that we sprinkle it in. And that's something that's a big part of my studio, like sprinkling in the depth of this work and the education in how do we get people moving well. So if they've got themselves into a bit of a pickle with their body, how do we help them out of it? And I think Claire Sparrow's episode is one of the most listened to. And the very first one, she talks about this a lot, of how, often it's like, the physios, the doctors are like seen as the experts, and they are, but they're experts in their field. We are big experts in helping people learn to move better, because if we keep moving the same way, no matter any amount of manual therapy or even surgery isn't going to fix us. We're just going to keep going round in a circle and feel like, oh yeah, I've been cracked back into place. I feel amazing. And then 2 weeks later, boom, I'm back here, because you're moving the same way. And what we get to do as Pilates teachers, I think, is educate people to move more efficiently. And with that efficiency, they then don't wear out parts of them in the same way. Efficiency is one of the principles of our teacher training at Soul Education. And it's one of the ones that I always just have the most conversation about because it just makes sense. And actually, Joseph Pilates was talking about efficiency, this idea that he only ever beasted someone. I don't personally agree with that. I think he very much understood educate the body to be more efficient, then challenge it. So, yeah, I love education. I'm loving getting to know the students. We've now got some students who've graduated who work for us and work at a lot of other studios. Some are in various places all over the UK. So, it's just wonderful seeing their journey, and I'm really enjoying that. This month, I also brought on board a new marketing manager into the studio team. I think structuring the studio team and the sort of admin side of it is such a challenge to get right. And as you grow, it then needs to adapt. You know, if you've got one studio and you're new to this, like you're doing all the things. I was doing all the things. You're cleaning the toilets, you're running the payroll, probably just for yourself. You're marketing the classes, you're writing the classes, you're setting all the systems up. Like it's full on. And then slowly, usually the first thing you might do is get like a virtual assistant to start answering the phones. I honestly think get that in sooner rather than later. It pays its way. I wish I'd done that sooner. I only did it because my daughter was about to be born and I suddenly realized, I probably can't be answering the phones when I've got a newborn. But I realized that when you answer the phone straight away, which a virtual assistant can do, you get more sales. And also in terms of enforcing your policies like late cancels and stuff, it's just so much easier when someone in admin says it versus you as a studio owner. Like you will just feel guilty with it. So yeah, you'll kind of get a virtual assistant and they might be answering the phones. They could be setting up your sequences on things like if you've got Moments or any of your booking platforms. There's so much that you can get them to do. And often they're doing this for lots of different companies and they will just charge you for the hours that they're doing for you. So I always think that's great. But as we've grown, we've had that. Now we've got like front of house team, studio management team, sales team. And marketing has always been a huge part of Soul because, my background is digital marketing. And then when I was about to have my son, I brought somebody in to be studio manager while I was off. And then we had to close for COVID 2 days later. But her background is in PR. So between us, we've always kind of come from that kind of marketing agency world. And it's just been a big part of what we do, really. And Danny, who is my marketing manager or was my marketing manager, she's been a massive part of the growth of my studio. She's amazing at running reports and looking at numbers and what they mean. But she went off to have a baby earlier this year and she is coming back. But I think I just naively thought, well, I can do her role. Of course I can. But I can't because I just don't have the capacity to do it nearly as well as she was doing. So we were very much treading water, which I felt like that's okay. We can just tread water for like a few months while she's off and then she'll kind of come back slowly. But I realized quite quickly that was a mistake because actually those more senior team members are often the only people in the business that maybe do some thinking. Like the bit that I find hard is that I am the only thinker in my business. I have lots of doers and I really appreciate them. But I was just finding when Danny had gone off, we'd added a new studio, we'd added an education program, and then I decided to run a podcast. I was like, I have no more capacity for thinking. I need someone who questions my decisions and who maybe thinks themselves and goes, these numbers say this. I think we should do this. So I brought on board a new marketing manager called Melanie on a maternity contract. And it was so amazing to put that job advert out there and just to see the quality actually that came through. I had a good couple of people who had lots and lots of experience. And I realized actually, and my episode with Milliner, when I was off air, I asked her, because she's got 5 studios, and I asked her about how has she grown the studio? And she actually said to me off air, 3 studios was one of her hardest periods. And I think that's kind of what I have been experiencing is that the systems and structure that I had for the 2 studios didn't quite land for the 3rd studio and education. So I have been kind of backpedaling a little bit and saying, I need to do things a bit differently. And actually what I realized was bringing somebody in at more of a senior capacity and spending a bit more money on them. Now, listen, you could still get someone who's terrible, you're paying more money on. I get that. But it's just about once I got her in, I mean, within a week, she's been amazing. She's been kind of picking up on things, kind of querying some things. And I think it's really important that if you're a studio owner, that you do have somebody in your life who quizzes you, whether that's someone in your team or a business coach like Jenna Safino or Studio Grow. There's lots of them out there who will also look at your numbers and quiz you on things. And I actually had a meeting with my business coach yesterday. She asked me a question. I looked on Moments and I was like, oh no, we're not doing that. Okay, let's do that. And that's great because you can get blind to all these things. And I think it's been really great to have her in. And for me, marketing is a big part of what all studios need. I think that it's not just kind of writing the copy and doing the emails, and that is a part of it, but it's also strategically being like, how do we measure success of social media? I mean, this is a conversation we have at our studio all the time. Like, what's success? Is it 80 followers, but they're really good and engaged and they might come to our studio? Or is it 10,000 who live in Australia? But now we're more of an influencer brand. Like, is that what we want to be? And I've always said I don't want my studio's brand to be an influencer brand. Like, I don't necessarily want to do the TikTok trends or anything like that. I want people to follow us who want to be part of our studio in some way or are interested in our messaging. But it's interesting to have those conversations. And I think often we can be doing all the things because we think we're supposed to. But it's really nice to have a team structure where you can sit back. We do it once a month and once a quarter we go deeper on it and be like, what are we doing? And why are we doing it? And does it make a difference if we didn't do it? Would it change our numbers? We measure everything in our studio, like every metric you can imagine, from the sales to the number of intros to what intros to how people came into the studio, like the source, how we're converting, how many people we convert in that month to membership, how many people we convert in previous months to membership, how long does it take for someone to do an intro to them becoming a member, how many members have we got, how many members have we got on hold, how many members have we lost. Like, we measure everything. And even when most months we hit our financial targets, I always find gaps. We also look at like class capacities, overall studio capacities, one-to-one capacities and utilization. And I think it has been that measurement of everything that has grown our success, has grown our studio and led to our success, because I always find something in the numbers that could be better. And I think that's really important to do, because I think I used to just look at the pounds, shillings, and pence and be like, oh, well, we've done this. This is great. But then how do you grow? Where do you grow from that? So, yeah, I think doing that has been really great. And having some senior team members has been also really great. The other thing I wanted to mention as well, though, I think, which is hopefully helpful to some of you, is about those team members that are part of the sales team. So whether you call them front of house, head of sales, anything like that. I think this is an incredibly difficult role to recruit for in our world. And again, lots of the studio owners I've talked to on the podcast off air have agreed with me, which is really reassuring, because we've gone through quite a few, because we measure everything, like I said. So I'm like, well, I need these numbers to look like this. And I think the challenge you've got is that if you found someone maybe from a really strong sales background, I'm not sure they'd be the kind of person that would be right for a Pilates studio, especially Soul Pilates. Like, we're all about putting the person first, meeting you where you're at. Equally, there's a skill to being good at sales. And I think you've got the people who come and do an intro who are always going to become a member. And you've got the people who do an intro we were never right for them. But then you've got all these people in between. I'm often an in-between person, and I need maybe a little bit of convincing in the right way. And I think what I've realized is, as I've started to really analyze this piece, is that sales in our world is all about asking questions. I'm quite good at that. I find that quite easy. So I think we were interviewing people, and if they had a good vibe about them, they had some decent relevant experience, and they were, we had a good chat and we felt like it went well, then we would bring them in. And more often than not, for quite a while, it just didn't work. Like, you'd see the percentages just plummet. And even though you'd give them time and you'd give them extra support and resources, like we have a big onboarding piece for our sales team. And actually, what we've done is we've really changed the interview process that we do. I think, for other roles in the business, we don't need to do this, but I think for the sales role, it's been really interesting. We give them lots of scenario based questions to sort of gauge how they would deal with it. So one of my favorite ones is someone walks into the studio and says, "Hi, can you tell me how much a reformer class is? How would you answer?" And sometimes people just say, "Well, I just tell them it's X amount of pounds." But that's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for someone to say, "Oh, hey, great, you're thinking of starting reformer. Why are you thinking of starting?" And they ask some questions. And actually, the recent recruits that we've had from that interview structure has actually been night and day compared to the rest. And also in interviews, it's become really apparent who's just not the right person, even though like energetically, their personality, like they feel like that they're really nice, but actually they don't get this understanding of being able to sort of think on their feet and ask questions and be interested in our clients, because we want to guide someone to the right teacher, to the right class or private, to the right option. And then we want to guide them all the way through so that they become long-term members with us. And really that's all about good questions. And so that's been an interesting piece. And in the last month, I hopefully we have turned the tide and our new interview structure is working much better. So that's my previous month. I am just so grateful that you're here. I am going off on my summer break. I'm going to have some time with some friends and family and try and step away and hopefully not take 4 days to switch off with some UK breaks, seeing some people who I haven't seen in a long time. I used to live in Yorkshire, so we're going up there and going to see some friends in Essex and stuff like that. So I hope you are also having a lovely summer, and I can't wait to welcome you back for season 2 in September.